Very good evening, everyone. I'm Shilpa and I welcome you all to the Shiksha webinar. Are you willing to appear for both CLAT and AILET? But there is a sense of unsureness among all the law students because the moment they got to know that AILET is happening a week before CLAT, that is on 11th of December, and CLAT is happening on 18th of December. And both exams are equally important for any law student. Even I have some questions to ask. Can you prepare for both examination at the same time? And can you score well in both exams? And how to prepare for both? And many more questions. I know many of you have the similar queries, and that's why you are here. To help us clear the doubts, with us we have Keshav Malpani. You are the founder of 12 Minutes to CLAT, and you hold extensive experience as an educator and mentor in the field of law. I heartily welcome you, Keshav, to today's session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shilpa.
And before we proceed to the students, feel free to send your questions to us through Q&A box or in the chat box. I shall try to get all your queries answered by the expert of the session after a quick discussion with him. Coming back to you, Keshav. First of all, is it really possible to prepare for both the exams at the same time? And if answer is positive, then we would like to know about the differences and similarities between CLAT and AILET. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Shilpa. Thank you for this warm introduction. I think CLAT and AILET have been happening a week, you could say, ahead of each other for quite some time now. So I think CLAT started in 2008. AILET also started around the same time. So they have been happening. It's just that the CLAT date was changed this year particularly. So CLAT used to happen on the second Sunday of May, whereas AILET used to happen on the first Sunday of May. यही एक difference होता था. Now, since CLAT announced their date that they're going to conduct the exam every year in December now, so that students get more time to prepare for the board exam later, and also CLAT consortium get more time to get with the counseling done. So because of those reasons, they did it on 18th this year, but they had announced it more than a year back. Now, AILET became a shocker for a lot of students who was kind of hoping that it's going to happen on the first Sunday of May. But I think a month ago, they came up with these notifications saying we're going to conduct it a week before CLAT now. So this is how it used to happen. But again, it's going to happen like this. Coming on to your question now, as to can we prepare together for it? So answer would be a big yes, because students have been preparing for it every year. It's not that these two exams are very different from each other. 70% of the preparation that goes into CLAT, AILET के लिए भी वो important रहेंगी. It's just that there are certain things additional that may have to be done for AILET particularly. So for my suggestion to all the students ideally would be to not just prepare for AILET, prepare for CLAT as well, because that is the primary exam for everybody. And if you're preparing for CLAT, AILET is going to be a very good practice for everybody, because it's going to happen a week before the exam. So even if you feel that you're not too prepared for AILET, but because your ultimate aim is CLAT, I would still suggest to go for an exam, because when you go for an exam like AILET, which is also a nationwide exam, a national level exam, you get a feel of the exam in the exam center as well, and you can kind of understand as to what are the mistakes that you do not have to make in CLAT, I would say. So that is, I think, a major advantage of AILET happening a week before CLAT, because I personally undertook both the exams in 2015. And I definitely remember that I genuinely realized that a lot of mistakes that I should not make in CLAT as well in the same year, which was a week ahead of AILET. So I think, yeah, it is definitely possible. There are certain things that I would suggest students to do differently for AILET preparation if they're genuinely looking to get into National University Delhi. यहाँ पर since we know that the CLAT pattern had also changed 3 years ago, AILET pattern also changed last year, and there's only one exam that has happened after that, which is AILET 2022. Looking at this particular paper of AILET 22, if you look at it, they have changed the pattern in the sense that we get 50 marks of English section, we get 30 marks of current affairs and static GK together, which are like one-liners, and then we get 70 marks of logical reasoning, which covers 3 parts. It covers analytical reasoning, it covers critical reasoning, it also covers legal reasoning. तो 3 पार्ट को वो कवर करता है. And generally, मतलब this is how it works. So last year का जो हमने पेपर देखा था, उसमें पता चला कि इंग्लिश में you don't have to prepare too much differently अगर आप CLAT के लिए prepare कर रहे हो. So if you're already preparing for CLAT, you do not need a lot of different things, or do not have to do too differently. कि आपको अगर उसके लिए prepare करना है. Current affairs will be a little different in the sense that for CLAT, students are not paying a lot of attention to static GK books, because that is out of course now. We will only get static GK from the current affairs topics only. So that is an additional thing that they will have to add. So there are certain books available in the market which can be referred to. So yeah, static GK is going to be an additional resource, and there are going to be certain online resources as well for current affairs, because current affairs in CLAT and AILET are quite different in the sense that CLAT will ask you a passage and 5 questions will flow out of that passage in current affairs as well. So you need to have in-depth understanding of a particular topic. At the same time, ऐसे कोई भी topic से question नहीं बन सकता जिससे 5 question बन ही नहीं सकते. So only relevant topics will be asked. Whereas AILET में ऐसा नहीं होता. Even if there is a possibility of getting one question out of a topic, they will definitely give it to you. If you look at the 22 paper also, you will realize that there are certain questions which you will not find as relevant, but they are relevant. The most important primary source for every aspirant for CLAT is newspapers, and it will stay the same for AILET aspirants as well. And I would strongly suggest everybody to give it some time, give it good amount of time, because both CLAT and AILET are not just checking as to how many questions you know, they're also checking as to how quickly can you do those questions. So if you can't do 150 questions within 90 minutes in AILET, if you can't do 150 questions within 120 minutes in CLAT, you are as good as somebody who scored who did not know a lot of questions. So there are students I've seen during my journey as well as an educator also, and generally I've been in contact with a lot of students. The major problem that they face even after studying too much is that they're not able to cope up with the time that is given in the exam. Well, they are able to do say 35 questions in a particular section, but they are not able to do it within the prescribed time limit. So that is another skill that we have to inculcate, and the best way to do this is to read regularly. Now, since this is an exam and you do not have time to go around reading novels or storybooks and all, because uske liye the time has gone. So newspaper is the best resource which helps you get through, or you could say you get a lot of words as well. It improves your vocabulary, which ultimately helps with the exam. It also kind of, you could say, helps a lot with the current affair part, because you kind of get an understanding as to what is going on in the news these days. And there is a good chance कि वहीं से directly question आता है. So it's very strongly recommended कि either from The Hindu or the Indian Express, one of the newspaper is to be read every single day. That is something which is like, you cannot compromise on it. You just, because a lot of students, I think sometimes look for shortcuts as well, in the sense that there are a lot of analysis video of newspapers that you will find on YouTube as well. ठीक है, मतलब अलग-अलग you will find institutes के this thing. So that helps in the sense कि आप लोग को समझ में आ जाएगा कि पढ़ना क्या है, how to read a newspaper. But if you're relying on those videos every single day, just for, just to make it easy for you, so that you do not have to read the entire newspaper and somebody else reading that for you, that is basically problematic in the sense that you are not inculcating that reading habit in yourself. So I think उसमें थोड़ा सा you'll have to be a little smart with that. Otherwise, GK और current affairs के preparation में CLAT and उसमें the static GK part is the major differential. Moving on to the last section, which is the biggest section. Out of 150, 70 marks is given to the logical reasoning section. Last year के पेपर से तो ऐसा पता चला, although this cannot be considered a set pattern अभी, because भी एक ही पेपर हुआ है. So last year के पेपर में most of the questions were from the critical reasoning part. There were analytical reasoning also, but critical reasoning part was asked quite a lot. So critical reasoning में वैसे भी CLAT के लिए कर ही रहे हैं बहुत ज़्यादा, and AILET's critical reasoning level is, I would say, easier as compared to CLAT. So that shouldn't be a problem for any students. So you don't have to prepare अलग से उसके लिए. Analytical reasoning के लिए there are certain books and there are like 5 to 6 topics at max. So if you prepare them, if you kind of practice them, you are able to kind of get a knack of it and able to understand as to how to go about it. Legal reasoning, I think अच्छी बात ये, that a lot of students are not very good at legal reasoning in CLAT, but they become good here in AILET, because AILET may, although they've changed the pattern, but they've not changed the pattern of questions in legal reasoning. Legal reasoning का उन्होंने as a section हटा दिया, but they ask you legal reasoning questions in logical reasoning itself. So that is the old pattern, the principal fact-based question that was generally asked in the old CLAT and AILET pattern. They will ask you the same kind of questions. So there are a lot of questions available, even if you solve just the past year papers from 2008 till today of CLAT and AILET, both you will be able to do well in that particular part of logical reasoning. So these are certain things. Differential is in the entire paper, if you look at it, it's static GK and some topics in analytical reasoning. The rest, it goes more or less similar as compared to CLAT. So I think a lot of students were really panicked when the dates were announced recently, because yeah, I understand it is a panicky situation, because anyway we were struggling to prepare for CLAT. अभी एक और obligation आ गया सर पे एकदम से कि we have to prepare for CLAT AILET as well. So yeah, it is a panicky situation as a student. I understand that, but I think there is not much of a difference. In fact, it gives you a very good starting point for CLAT, and mock tests will be a slightly, you could say, something that you could do over a period of time. So CLAT ki, I think students who are seriously preparing for CLAT 23 are doing at least 2 mock tests every week. And you can add an AILET mock test to it as well if you are genuinely looking to go into NLU Delhi, because again, because of state domicile and a lot of different reasons, the number of seats in NLUD has reduced drastically in the last 2-3 years. So we do not have a lot of seats, but still, like, it is students like these who are listening to us today go to these colleges. You do not have to be like extraordinary or smart or anything else to be able to make to these colleges. It's just that you have to get the pattern right, get the strategy right, get an understanding of what is being asked in the exam and what can be asked in the exam. So मेरा ये suggestion रहेगा, everybody who is starting to prepare for the exam, be it LLB or LLM, I mean CLAT PG or UG or AILET PG or UG, just go through the past year paper once to understand as to what is asked in the exam. But generally, we see, I'll see a lot of students, the mistake that they do, and they're not able to get through the pattern, even like after a month of starting their preparation, because उन्होंने questions solve करने शुरू कर दिए या फिर classes attend करने शुरू कर दिए. They have not gone through the pattern as to what is being asked in the exam. So unless you understand that, you won't be very comfortable with the preparation. वो सब कुछ थोड़ा सा हवा में रहेगा unless you kind of get to it and understand ki, okay, these are the kind of questions that are asked, and this is how I have to prepare. That gives you a better understanding.
Keshav, before we proceed, I would like to inform students that I have kept the chat open for all the students. If you have any question, you can post your questions in the chat box or in the Q&A box, though we have received some questions in the Q&A box. But the words you have shared with us, I have some follow-up questions. Keshav, sometimes back you were saying that you appeared for the both examination in 2015, and even you did some mistakes. So what was your learning, so that the students who are appearing for the examination this year will not repeat?
So I think my learning majorly was that when you go to an exam center, which is, you know, a high level exam in the sense that people across the country are going to different centers for the exam. So you already a little nervous when you start from your house, and when you reach the examination center, you get more nervous because you see people reading till the last minute. If somebody asks you a question and, like, for example, say you do not know the answer to that particular question, you kind of feel that you're not prepared enough for the exam. So I was really nervous at that time, and I was really kind of not very happy with what was happening in there, because generally our habit was to write a mock test sitting inside the house, which is very comfortable, or go to any other place and write it, where you will not find more than say 20-25 students. So when we saw that we have like more than 200, 250, 300 students in one center, and all of them studying, opening their books till the last minute, that is you could say a high pressure situation for people. And that is something that I had not seen before that. So yeah, that was slightly, because it's all about managing pressure at the last day. You do not do last में 2 घंटे पढ़ के मैं कुछ ऐसा नहीं पढ़ लूंगा इस एग्जाम में. It's not a board exam कि मैं कुछ पढ़ लूंगा तो मुझे लास्ट में भी कुछ आ सकता है. It's an exam where you do not know क्या questions आएंगे. So जो preparation होती है वो exam से एक दिन पहले तक ही होती है generally. And yeah, that was one learning. When I went to CLAT, I was really chill about it. The CLAT 2015 that I wrote is still considered one of the most difficult CLAT papers in the history of CLAT. But I was able to do it properly because I had done AILET pehle, and I knew कि it's okay. What I have to do is basically maximize my potential and not think about anything else. So yeah, that is something that every student shall keep in mind, and I will strongly suggest everybody to try for AILET, even if the percentage of people who get through it is, you could say, very low because the seats are limited. But still, it's a good exam to go for.
Okay, as you said, through AILET we have the limited seat, and related to that we have a follow-up question from Vikas, and he is asking about, sir, if I'll apply for CLAT, we get admission in 22 NLUs, whereas through AILET we get admission in only NLU Delhi. So can we skip AILET?
again, the thing here is, it's not about the admission that you get. Admission agar NLU Delhi mein milta hai, so it's one of the best, I would say, in top 5 in the country. When it comes to legal education in India, it's among the top 5 NLUs. But yeah, that's a good question in the sense कि आपको एक ही college मिलता है. But what I am trying to say is कि it's going to help you prepare really well for CLAT. क्योंकि CLAT से एक ही हफ्ता पहले है. So CLAT, even if आपका CLAT ultimate aim है, you will give it like a mock test. It's a Sunday mock test for you. Go to the center, write, just understand as to what can happen on that particular day. So what happens is sometimes a lot of students after every exam blame, which exam was say for 1.5 hours, we were not allowed to open our sheets for the first 5 minutes or the first 2 minutes. And that adds to a lot of pressure in a student's mind कि वैसे ही 90 minutes थे या 120 minutes थे, and 5 minutes out of them is also wasted. So how to deal with those kind of situation which is beyond your control, which has never happened during the other mock tests. So that is going to help if you write AILET or CLAT में ज़्यादा help करेगा वो is what my understanding and my experience is. I would suggest, although it's a commitment, I think उसका form is some 3,000 rupees or something. So I think a lot of students are like, मतलब 3,000 रुपए का form भरेंगे, it's better we buy a mock test series and start doing that. But just to get a vibe of the exam, just to get an understanding of how these exams work, I would suggest that you guys should go for it.
Okay. Rest, I can see few questions in the chat box. Satya and Jagriti, thank you so much for sending question. So let's take Satya's question, and she's asking about what about LLM test in CLAT and AILET. Can we have any guidance on this?
LLM, again, the pattern has changed for LLM as well. The CLAT PG or AILET PG exam. Particularly, if you look at the last year papers, 22 wale jo dono papers hai, most importantly asked questions are from the judgments that have, you could say, the landmark judgments in India. So if there is a proper syllabus given on the consortium website, even if you visit the NLU Delhi website, there's a proper syllabus given. The first task would be to go through that syllabus. Secondly, make a list of all the important judgments that have taken place, particularly the Supreme Court judgments, which have been relevant. Sometimes what happens is, for example, say there is a recent case going on, which is about the EWS reservation. So there is this category called economically weaker section among general categories. So there is a case going on whether this particular reservation is constitutional or unconstitutional, because so far the reservation that was provided in India were caste based, but never just income based. Income was never the reason. So is it valid or not? So now this particular judgment, you could say, has a lot of backing behind. If you look at the judgments from the 1950s, starting जब से हमारा Supreme Court बना है 1950s से लेके अभी तक, there are so many judgments that all those judgments become important. So whenever you go through a particular, you could say, judgment or anything that's going on in law, again, the most important thing would be reading newspapers, reading these legal websites also. Like, so a website like Live Law, Bar and Bench will really help if you can do it on a daily basis.
Okay, so I can see Jagriti has two questions. So I'll take the later one first. She's asking about this National Law University Delhi. Should she give priority to AILET on CLAT? I know you have already explained it at length, but if any guidance on this?
I would suggest to give priority to CLAT over AILET. The simple reason is the chances of success. Okay, so there are, for particularly talking about the UG category, there are 80,000 students who fill form for CLAT. Last year, that was the number. And there are about half of them fill the form for AILET as well. But if you want to get into a top 5 NLU, if you get a rank of about 400 or 450, you are easily able to get in. But for AILET, you have to get into top 100 and then hope that you are able to get in. So yeah, that is the difference. So I would not suggest to give preference to AILET over CLAT, because if you give preference to CLAT, 70 to 80% of AILET is also covered in that. So it's better to give preference to that bigger exam and then go for the smaller one.
Okay. So Keshav, sometimes back you were talking about sections of the examination. So we have a similar question from Jagriti. Which section we should focus more for CLAT and AILET?
You are anyway going to prepare for CLAT, and English is going to be a section that you will prepare for CLAT as well. So you don't have to prepare anything different for AILET. So that is one section that is something you're going to import by default from your CLAT preparation to your AILET preparation. So that is one advantage कि वो 50 number के लिए कुछ prepare करना ही नहीं है. Now remaining 100 marks, I would still suggest to give more emphasis on the logical reasoning part, because आप static GK या current affairs में कितना भी पढ़ लो, at the end of the day there is a possibility that you may not know the question because there is no limit to the number of or the kind of questions that may be asked. And it's anyway 30 marks. So 30 में से if you have prepared properly for CLAT, you should be able to get at least 50 to 60% of the questions correct. Now, logical reasoning is 70 marks. There is, you could say, the way of learning things in that particular section is easier as compared to current affairs. Because as I told you, the primary and the only source that you need to refer for the legal reasoning part of logical reasoning is the past year papers. जो पुराने pattern के papers थे, just solve all of them. And that's something that you should be able to do within like a week. एक week में सारे papers solve हो सकते हैं. Only the legal reasoning part. For logical reasoning part also, you can solve the past year papers. You will get a lot of analytical reasoning questions from there, and you will figure out the topics as well. So there are like 5 to 6 topics जो आपको पढ़ने हैं, उसको solve करना है, and that's it. And critical reasoning हम CLAT में भी कर रहे हैं, तो उसके लिए कुछ अलग नहीं करना है. तो logical reasoning in English strong है. There is a good possibility कि आप AILET निकाल लोगे, but again, logical reasoning और English सबका strong है because they're also preparing for CLAT. तो क्योंकि वो CLAT के लिए प्रिपेयर करें, लॉजिकल और इंग्लिश सब स्ट्रॉन्ग करके आते हैं, डिफरेंशियल सेक्शन इज गोइंग टू बी करंट अफेयर्स एंड स्टैटिक जीके. तो अगर आपने वहां पर थोड़ी ज्यादा मेहनत कर ली, तो दैट दोज लाइक 3, 4, 5 मार्क्स एक्स्ट्रा कुड बी डिफरेंशियल. एलिट में हमेशा ऐसे ही होता है दैट फॉर स्टूडेंट्स हु गेट इनटू द कॉलेज, उनका एक मार्क्स होता है और उसके बाद में विद इन 5 मार्क्स देयर आर मोर देन 500 स्टूडेंट्स, बिकॉज वो जस्ट वो दो नंबर से रह जाते हैं स्टूडेंट, बिकॉज इतना सा भी गलती का स्कोप नहीं है उसमें. तो आई थिंक डिफरेंशियल इज करंट अफेयर्स एंड स्टैटिक, बट you could say focus ज़्यादा अगर करना है आपको, so it's going to be English and logical.
Okay, and here to the students who are sending question like Noor and Akash, you both have sent the question, should we give CLAT exam or AILET or the both? For your information, sir has explained this at length. So I would request you to watch this video on our YouTube channel. Moreover, I'll share the link to this session particularly on your email. So don't worry about it. Okay, coming back to you, Keshav, could you please share some guidance on question attempting strategy?
Question attempting strategy for both AILET and CLAT, I think we should make, while we do the mock test, we should have a time frame in mind. So for example, say we have 90 minutes in hand and we know that we have to solve 3 sections. So have a very fair understanding of how much time you're going to give to each section. Current affairs will not take more than 5 minutes because these are one-liner questions. You just, because current affair में ऐसा नहीं होता कि सोचना पड़ रहा है, या static GK में either you know it or you know that you do not know it. So you just either mark it or just leave it, right? It doesn't take more than 5 minutes. So you have roughly 85 minutes left. So 85 minutes में I would suggest you can give about 30 to 35 minutes to English. 35 भी दोगे तो चल जाएगा. And about 50 minutes to the logical reasoning part. तो पूरा 70 marks का जो है, around 50 minutes it will require. So yeah, major chunk to logical reasoning, लेकिन English को भी आपको 30 to 35 minutes देने पड़ेंगे. And yeah, 5 minutes से भी कम लग जाता है कभी current affairs में.
Keshav, I remember sometimes back, initially you were talking about time management, and it's a problem with so many students because I can see questions in the Q&A box.
Yeah.
And you were saying that it's a skill that we need to inculcate in ourselves. So how we can improve this time management skill?
So generally, when you look at it, if we generally also, like as normal people also, if we start reading something very quickly, we will not understand half of it. And but when we keep doing it for say a month or maybe more than that, we will start getting more things while reading quicker. So what students can do preparing for CLAT and AILET 23, be it PG or UG, you guys can start reading newspapers if you're not reading it already. It is a difficult task. I'm very sure that बचपन से हमने कभी newspaper पढ़ा नहीं होता है, because बचपन से स्कूल में हमें हाथ में कोर्स बुक्स ही दी हैं जिनको तेज पढ़ने का कोई सेंस नहीं है. If you read it correctly, it's fine. वहां तक ही चलता है. But when you read the newspapers in the last few months, you can start using a stopwatch for every article that you read. So ultimately, for example, say you're able to read a long article in 8 minutes. Try to reduce it by 10 to 15 seconds every week. And that should be good enough. Like you don't have to, what we try to do is कि किसी mentor ने बोल दिया था कि 5 मिनट में बड़ा article पढ़ना है, हमें 8 मिनट लग रहे हैं, तो हम कल से 5 मिनट ट्राई करेंगे. ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता ना. You can't bridge that 3 मिनट का gap within a day. So try to reduce it by 15 seconds every week. एक महीने में आके आपका एक पूरा मिनट खत्म हो जाएगा. And धीरे धीरे करके you will be able to get through it. So rather than you could say running towards as to how to read faster, start reading every day. You will ultimately start reading faster. And जो questions आप solve करोगे, mock test थोड़े crucial होते हैं. Mock test अगर हम करने लग जाएंगे and when we kind of understand कि हमें कितना time लग रहा है. For example, मैं English solve कर रहा हूँ, 35 minutes मैंने अपने सोचा कि I will give 35 minutes to English, but मुझे लग रहा है 40 to 45 minutes. Now I need to figure out as to वो extra time मुझे कहाँ पर बचाना है, because most of the students sometimes get stuck in some difficult questions. So मैं अगर कोई passage पढ़ रहा हूँ, I'll go back to the options, I'll go back to the passage, तो मैं to and fro करने में बहुत time waste कर रहा हूँ. So something very important to understand for all the CLAT and AILET aspirants is कि CLAT is not judging your English skills or your GK skills or anything like that. They don't even know कि आपको क्या आता है. तो अगर आपके एक सब्जेक्ट में कभी 0 भी आते हैं और एक सब्जेक्ट में फुल आते हैं ना, तो दैट फुल लाइक पूरा ही काउंट होता है वो. सो जनरली कुछ ऐसे एग्जाम्स होते हैं जहाँ पर हर सेक्शन में एक मिनिमम पासिंग परसेंटेज होता है. इफ यू टॉक अबाउट द चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंसी का जो एंट्रेंस होता है सीपीटी, उसमें यू हैव टू पास इन ऑल द सब्जेक्ट्स एंड देन यू हैव टू पास ओवरऑल एज वेल. क्लैट में ऐसा नहीं होता. So even if you feel your particular section is very difficult, just leave it and move to a more easier section. Every time the paper will have definitely 2 to 3 sections that are easier and 2 sections that are difficult. So कई बार ऐसा होता है कि मैंने एक सेक्शन से स्टार्ट किया वो डिफिकल्ट है, आई मूव टू द नेक्स्ट वन वो भी डिफिकल्ट है, मैं फिर होप ही लूज कर जाता हूँ कि मतलब मेरे से तो होएगा ही नहीं, बिकॉज आई एम नॉट एबल टू डू दैट एग्जाम. That is not how it will work, because I will have to give my 100% in those 2 hours. चाहे मुझे लग रहा है कि आई वाज होपिंग कि मेरे 100 आएंगे, बट पेपर देख के मुझे 70 ही लग रहे हैं, राइट. बट वो 70 मार्क्स शायद कट ऑफ हो जाएगी, बिकॉज एज आई टोल्ड यू दैट 2015 पेपर वाज एक्सट्रीमली डिफिकल्ट. सो आई वेंट टू एनएलयू जोधपुर. एनएलयू जोधपुर का कट ऑफ जो 150 था एक साल पहले, दैट वाज आउट ऑफ 200, इट केम डाउन ड्रास्टिकली टू 100 बिकॉज द पेपर वाज सो डिफिकल्ट. So when it's difficult for everybody. So rather than cribbing during those 2 hours and kind of reflecting कि हम और पहले पढ़ लेते तो और अच्छा हो जाता, something like that, it's better to utilize those 2 hours and do as much as you can in those 2 hours. Just try to take one question at a time. Sometimes we get, you could say, students do a lot of sectional tests also these days. As in, for example, मेरा English week है तो मैं English के 6 passages solve कर रहा हूँ back to back. And they say generally कि जब वो sectional test solve करते हैं, it gets slightly easier for them to solve. They get better marks, but they do not get the same amount of marks in the same section when they do a full mock test. Now that is because we have pressure of a lot of other sections as well. अगर मैं full mock test कर रहा हूँ, 5 section है, इतने सारे questions है, तो मुझे लग रहा है कि मुझे अगले question पे भी जाना है. So it always makes sense to think about one passage at a time, those 5 questions at a time. Within that particular time frame, उसको करो और आगे बढ़ो, rather than thinking about the entire paper, because that's not going to help you.
Okay, I know many students are posting so many questions for you, Keshav. I have shared a question with you. If you think that we can answer it, then we can reply to that question. Otherwise, we can skip it. Okay, coming back to rest of the questions students want to ask you. Students are asking, like Noor and Shikha, they both are asking about which book should we buy for CLAT and AILET. And I'll add it. In your opinion, if you could just guide us on the books, resources, mocks, and PYQs.
Is it for UG or PG?
They haven't mentioned it.
I'm assuming that it's for UG. So UG के लिए, to be very honest, there are not many books available in the market because the pattern is very new. So for static GK, you can refer to Lucent's GK. It's a good book. You can read it. You can skip the science part and you can read the other one, but buy the latest version, because sometimes ऐसा होता है कि there are a lot of facts about the largest, the biggest, the smallest, the slowest. ये वाले जो facts होते हैं, they keep changing over a period of time. So do not buy a book that is 5-6 years old. Buy a latest version of every book. And for English, you can refer to Renan Martin. It's a very good book. It will help you with your vocabulary, with prepositions, and will obviously help you with your reading comprehension part as well. So yeah, it's a good quality book. It has slightly difficult level questions, so you can solve that. That will help you. Before doing any books, do the past year papers. Past year papers are, you could say, the guiding light for any exam in this country. मतलब it's not just क्योंकि pattern बहुत ज़्यादा कभी भी change नहीं होता. The kind of questions they ask, अभी जैसे इन्होंने पहले 5 section पूछे थे. One good thing for AILET aspirant is कि अब maths नहीं आएगा AILET में. So a lot of students dread maths. उनको लगता है कि maths तो बिल्कुल ही हो नहीं पाएगा हमसे. तो AILET में आना बंद हो गया, which is a good sign कि AILET में don't have to prepare separately for maths. But बुक्स में लूसेंट जीके ले सकते हो. लॉजिकल रीजनिंग के लिए देयर इज बुक कॉल्ड एमके पांडे, that is used for analytical reasoning. That is a good book that you can refer to only for analytical reasoning. Critical reasoning के लिए you will have to buy verbal logic, RS Agarwal books आती हैं, और you can refer to online sources as well. CMAT club वगैरह online sources होते हैं जिसको आप refer कर सकते हो.
Okay, considering the time left, I would like to share a poll here so that we can understand whether you are liking this session or not, so that we can come up with more webinars. And I hope you all can see it. So I would request all the students to kindly poll in. So the first question is, was this session helpful? You can answer it in a yes or a no. And the second question is, how likely is that you would recommend this webinar to your friends? You can reply it in, you can actually rate it from 1 to 10. 1 is being not likely at all and 10 is being extremely likely. I'm keeping this poll open for at least 2 minutes. And meanwhile, coming back to you, Keshav, we have more questions from the students. So let's answer a few more. Sunita Rani, Jagriti, and Noor. They all have questions related to how to improve mock score and how they can analyze their performance while giving mocks. And yes, the rest question I'll ask you later.
How to improve mock score is basically to concentrate on every section properly. Generally, what we do is there are certain sections that we are quite comfortable and there are certain sections that we do not like at all. मतलब जैसे maths होता है, for some it's current affairs, we do not like them. So what we do is हम सोचते हैं कि last में कर लेंगे. So mocks में भी वो reflect करता है wherein we are not able to score too well in those sections. So when you feel that, when you look at your last mocks, मान लो last 3-4 mocks, and you feel that in a particular section, your marks are really low consistently, they're really poor, then you need to kind of work in those particular sections properly. You need to practice them other than the full mocks also. It's a practice-based exam now. It is not a lot of concept-based exam other than current affairs. So it's practice-based, practice as much as you can and make sure that you're practicing something on a daily basis. So what you can do is, you can start creating set of 2 sections. For example, English and critical reasoning on a day and legal reasoning on maths the next day. Current affairs रोज चलेगा. उसके अलावा 2 sections को pair करके you can start solving them one after the other. It will look like a mock test, but it will be a sectional test and you will work with your speed, your efficiency and everything. So if you want to increase your mock test scores, identify the problems. If you want to analyze your mock test properly, mock test analyze करने का एक बहुत simple तरीका होता है. जैसे for example, there are 150 questions and you attempted say 100, and out of those 100 you got 70 correct, 30 incorrect. So you just look at your 70 questions first कि जो सही हो गए, start on a positive note. Look at the answer key. Answer key आजकल explanation के साथ में आती है कि explain why this particular question is right or wrong or option is right or wrong. So उसमें देख लो. कभी कभी वो 70 क्वेश्चन में कुछ ऐसे क्वेश्चन होते हैं जहां पर आर लाइन ऑफ थिंकिंग वाज समथिंग एल्स. हमने ए मार्क कर दिया विच इज द करेक्ट आंसर, बट हम कुछ और सोच रहे थे. एग्जामिनर का पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू कुछ और था बट आंसर वही है. तो हमें भी समझ में आ जाएगा कि क्या हमारा मतलब जो तुक्का लग गया बाय चांस वो सही हो गया है किस वजह से. नाउ कम टू द 30 क्वेश्चंस that you did not do correctly. Those were incorrect questions. One big advice that I would like to give you here is do not analyze the mock test too late. When for example से अगर आप mock test करा है आपने roughly speaking की 2 to 3:30 कर दिया या फिर 2 to 4 कर दिया in case of CLAT, तो उसके 1 घंटे बाद ही उसको एनालाइज करने लग जाओ. You can take a break and then you can start analyzing it, because when you analyze those wrong questions that you have done, sometimes you're not able to understand कि मैं उस टाइम सोच क्या रहा था while I was doing that question. अगर मैं 2-3 दिन बाद उसको एनालाइज करूंगा तो. But if I'm doing it at that point in time, I will be able to analyze, understand it quite, you could say, very basic things. कि मेरे को why did I not do this question right, because मैंने उसको रीड ही गलत कर दिया. मैंने रीड सही किया था, मैंने उसको समझा ही गलत. I could like not understand that particular word. So वो easy होता है. तो वो 30 questions को analyze करो उसके बाद में, and then those 50 questions जो रह जाते हैं, solve them like a mock test again and try to understand कि आपके उसमें आपको कितना टाइम लग रहा है. So for example say 1.5 घंटे का पेपर था and in solving all those questions you took 2 hours. Now you need to understand कि आप आधा घंटा ज्यादा ले रहे हो, तो where to you could say use that particular extra time and do at least 20 to 30 more questions within that time frame. That is how you would analyze it.
Okay. So Keshav, as a student, we have some areas, let's say mathematics is a subject, we find it difficult. And for few, we don't even understand that what our weaknesses are, our strengths are. And during the examination, what type of questions we should attempt that, the one which we find difficult or other way around?
I think the best way to go about it is to solve the easiest question in every passage first, every section first. अगर आपको लगता है कि कोई particular English में एक passage आया है which is written like a poetry or it is philosophical, it is slightly difficult to read that. It is everybody does not understand it. Leave it in the first instance. Move to the easier questions. Do them first, because जैसे मैंने बोला, it's all about maximizing the number of questions you're able to do correctly. वहाँ वो नहीं check कर रहे कि आपने वो मुश्किल वाला passage सही solve किया था क्या. They're only checking कि आपने total कितने passages सही solve कर लिए, कि total कितने questions सही solve कर लिए और उसमें आपके कितने marks आए हैं. So that is something that everybody needs to understand, is कि rather than wasting time on rather very difficult questions, मूव ऑन टू द इजियर वंस इन एवरी सेक्शन. एक बार डिफिकल्ट वाले छोड़ दो हर सेक्शन में. जब पूरा पेपर हो जाएगा आपका, कुछ टाइम बचेगा, फिर वो मुश्किल वाले क्वेश्चंस कर सकते हैं वापस जाके.
Okay. Thank you, Keshav, for answering that. We have more questions from the students. And the student want to ask you, sir, how can we avoid negative marking in these exams?
Negative marking is when you do not attempt. So, see, there are two things. A lot of educators, mentors, including me, I feel that if you have attempted more questions, there is a chance that you will get more marks. मतलब obviously, अगर आपने 100 क्वेश्चन अटेम्प्ट किए, हो सकता है कि आपके 90 ना आए, बट आपने 120 किए तो 90 का अच्छा चांस बन गया. So, just to increase the number of attempts, what a lot of students try to do is कि वो recklessly question कर देते हैं कि हाँ मतलब थोड़ा सा भी आइडिया लग रहा है तो कर दिया क्वेश्चन. So there are three categories in which I generally divide questions. One is where we are very sure about कि ये questions हमें आते हैं. Second questions we have doubt between two options. Either A or B मुझे नहीं पता है, but it's definitely between A and B. And sometimes I have no idea about the question, which is the third category. So no idea वाले questions तो करने ही नहीं है. There is no point doing that unnecessarily. जो आते हैं वो तो definitely सब करेंगे, but ये जो second category है ना, तो out of 150 questions, there are more than 30 to 35 questions where we have doubts in two options. I would strongly suggest everybody to mark all those because you get a +1 for every right answer and you get minus 0.25 for every wrong answer. So out, for example, say there are 5 questions जहां पर आपको दो options में doubt था, and if you mark all 5 of them, आपने सारे पांचों mark किए, even if you get just one of them correct, आपको overall score 0 ही है. You are not getting in negative. लेकिन अगर 5 में से 2 भी question सही हुए, where you were not too sure, आपको दो में ही doubt था, so you will get into plus. So the idea here is to maximize the number of attempts and at the same time not do questions recklessly. That should help you with increasing the number of attempts and increasing the mock test score ultimately.
Okay, even I want to ask you several questions, but yes, students are sending questions, so it's important to address their queries first. So next up, we have question from Mohit, and he is asking, how important is it to work on legal terms and foreign phrases?
इसको हम maxims बोलते हैं generally, I think in legal language. I would suggest to do some maxims. There are a lot of books available. A.P. Bhardwaj is one book wherein you will find a lot of legal maxims. Generally, also if you search on Google, you will find a lot of legal maxims. So I would suggest to refer to 2 or 3, maybe you could say websites here and there, and take note of them. Because sometimes what happens is if the passage in a particular section, say the legal section, is taken from a book, or you could say from a legal article, the lawyers generally have a habit, or even law students have a habit of using this jargons generally. तो मुश्किल जो Latin terms होते हैं उसको use करने का थोड़ा आदत होता है. So in order to kind of get that particular passage, you should know the basic terms at least. You don't have to do everything, but there are like 20, 25, 30 Latin maxims that everybody must know if you are a CLAT or an AILET aspirant.
Keshav, can we take question? Apu is asking tax law simple tips for LLM.
Tax law, I think, for LLM entrance, tax law, just go through the recent judgments that have come, which have become news. Like tax law, the roz बहुत सारे judgments आते हैं, but like go for those judgments which are extremely relevant at this point in time. जो बहुत ज़्यादा चल रहे हैं. They could be related to GST. GST में काफी कुछ होता रहता है. अभी Delhi had a very you could say famous excise policy that was revoked, brought back. तो वो सब चलता रहता है. So do things that are going in law. Tax law entrance level पर they will not ask very difficult questions because tax law, even for students who are studying tax, it is very difficult. So at your level, they will not ask you difficult questions in tax law.
Okay. And for Apu only, I'm sharing a link in the chat box. If you want to fetch more information about tax law, then you can have a look at it, and I'm sure it will be helpful to you. Okay, coming back to you, Keshav, we have received a question, and the question is like, sir, can you please tell me how many questions should be correct to get into top 5 NLU?
Looking at the last 3 years trend in AILET, in CLAT, I mean, 100 is a very safe score. 95 is also generally safe, but 100 is very safe. So if you can get anything close to 100, that's a safe score for top 5 NLU. Yeah, in the last 3 years, paper, I think is going to be the same difficulty level again. So yeah, 100 is a very safe score. 95 plus is a good score. Okay, I can see one more question, and Sid has this question. How to prepare for LR, sir, because I find it very difficult. Yeah, this is what it exactly means. Yes. LR is legal reasoning, I'm assuming. Legal reasoning, what you have to do is you first have to clarify yourself with the basic laws. So generally, what is taught to students is law of contract, torts, criminal law, and constitution. Constitution और contract तो at least आपको बहुत अच्छे से आने ही चाहिए. Torts is very easy. है ना? तो ये सारी चीजें अगर आपको आती है तो you now know about how to read a law. You have a very basic understanding of law now. एक बार अगर आपको वो आ गया, then you can start solving questions. You can start with past year papers, and एक बार वो past year papers पूरे हो जाएंगे, then you can start solving a lot of general questions as well. आप general questions भी फिर बहुत सारे कर सकते हो, because it's all about solving a question at the end of the day. Because CLAT और AILET दोनों ने बोला है कि they will not ask questions based on a legal knowledge. They'll only ask questions based on legal interpretations. तो अगर आप उसमें पढ़ रहे हो कुछ चीज को and you're able to interpret it better, it's like a reading comprehension passage now. But you need to have a basic understanding of law for that. The constitution, contracts, crime, जैसा basic आपको law आना चाहिए. You will be able to do it. To do those basics, start solving as many questions as you can. That is the only way to crack it.
Okay. Keshav, I guess, sorry, I guess the next question, even you can see it. Nupur Varshne has this question. Tips for AILET English.
Tips for AILET English. See, again, same thing. Solve questions. जब CLAT के लिए कर रहे हो ना, वही करो. To make a list of, for example, say passage based question आते हैं, तो 6 questions, 6 passages को एक साथ solve किया करो. Always solve 6 passages in a row, so that you're able to understand your speed और उस particular time में आप कितने questions सही भी कर पा रहे हो. You don't have to read any book for it. You don't have to read anything for it. Newspaper अगर daily basis पर read कर रहे हो, तो newspaper से आपको reading ability आ जाएगी, reading habit आ जाएगी. You will be able to interpret things after a point. Those who are planning to start with newspaper reading from today or tomorrow, please give it at least 15 to 20 days for you to get normal, or you could say used to it. There are a lot of students who leave reading newspaper within the first 10 days, and most of them do this because it is not something that we have done. It's very uncomfortable. It is going to be uncomfortable at the start, but please keep at it and you will definitely be able to do well at it.
Okay. Keshav, I have a doubt. When we just talk about prepare for the general knowledge and current affairs, but this is something daily we need to update ourselves, because something is happening around us on the world level. So my question is, does monthly magazine help us in any way?
Monthly magazine does help. Monthly magazine will definitely help, but again, the thing is, it is very difficult for somebody to remember everything unless we make our own notes. So what I used to do with my AILET preparation, is time CLAT ka pattern bhi more or less same tha. I had certain notebooks where I used to write daily facts. As in, I used to write them in a question format as to yesterday a new CDS was appointed. To who is the new CDS appointed? A karke uska answer. So whenever you are traveling somewhere or you're doing anything else, for example, mostly travel time hota tha. So usme I used to read that. Just before a mock also, I know that I'm going to write a mock at 2 p.m. today. So सुबह से I used to revise that. So I had revised that so many times कि मुझे सब कुछ उसमें से याद हो गया था. So if you only rely on a monthly magazine without taking your own notes, that could be problematic. A monthly magazine is a very good source for preparation, but you can also refer to certain online sources that are particularly for CLAT or AILET preparation as well.
Keshav, any particular magazine that you referred?
Pratyogita Darpan is good. Competition Success Review is good. These are two magazines that people generally go for. Even the UPSC aspirants go for it. But wo thoda sa, they're bulky, to be very honest. Every month they'll have I think 150 odd pages they give you that magazine, 100 to 150 pages. So if somebody is willing to work that hard and read it, I think you will be able to cover most of the topics quite comprehensively in there.
Okay. And thank you to all of you that you are showering a lot of love on us, that you are asking for the recording of this webinar. Yes, it will be available on the Shiksha official YouTube channel, the link of which I am sharing in the chat box. And this video will be available around after 1 or 2 days, because we shall be doing some editing in it. Okay, coming back to the question, Praveen Maji has a question. Keshav, he's asking about tips for Quant at the books or any other website which will help us to enhance on this particular section.
Quant ke liye, see again, the Quant that come in the law entrance exam is mostly 8th standard level. एक आध topic आगे पीछे, mostly 8th standard. तो हमने बचपन में वो सारे topics पढ़े हैं, profit and loss, averages, percentages, ratio, proportion. वही चीजें पूछी जाती है, slightly advanced version of it. मतलब it's very easy. There is this book that I referred. It's called Magical Book on Quicker Maths by this writer called M. Tyra. It's a very good book if you want to self-prepare also. If you have who's nobody teaching you or something, you can go for that book. There are a lot of solved exercises. Using those solved exercises, you will get an understanding of how a question is solved. You can start after you are looking at those and solving those questions with the exercises. You can go to the unsolved exercises as well in that book and solve those questions and try to understand कितना आगे है. So there are like 5 to 6 topics जो बहुत strong होने चाहिए. अगर वो सारे topics strong है, you will be able to do at least 2 passages out of 3.
Thank you, Keshav, for answering that question. Okay, next up we have a question related to self-preparation. And Akhi has this question. Sir, please do guide us about the study plan for the last 2 months as I am doing self-preparation.
Study plan, you could say, I do not know anybody's routine here, but if you are preparing with 12th standard, I would strongly recommend कि आप 12th standard का जो board exam होएगा उसको एक second priority बना सकते हो because that is going to happen in March or maybe Feb end. But आपका जो CLAT या AILET exam है, that should be your first priority ideally. So a lot of students are preparing for with 12th standard. They have stopped going to school too much. अगर आपका 6 days or 5 days school है, make it 2 to 3 days in a week. Don't go more than that because it kind of takes a lot of your time. You come back home and you don't feel like studying because it's exhausting as well. So you can stop doing that. If you are a repeater and you're not going to school, ideally make a schedule wherein at least like 1.5 घंटे के दिन में 2 ऐसे compartments होने चाहिए where you're only practicing topics, where you're only practicing questions. And current affairs is something that you will have to do on a daily basis. So the newspaper se chalega. And I would recommend to take some time off for some recreational activities, at least 1 hour a day. Or at most, I would say 1 hour a day because it gets बहुत सारे students को I think despite doing well, they compare with other, you could say people who are writing the same exam. And that's very natural. We keep doing that. So I think you don't have to compare yourself with anybody. In fact, you just compare yourself with the mark that you were getting in the last mock test. So अगर मेरे last mock में 70 आए थे, my aim would be to get 72 in the next mock test, and that is something that will help me improve without a lot of pressure.
I know I'm asking question, literally bombarding questions on you.
No, it's all right.
And okay, I'll give you a breather for a moment.
No, it's all right. I'm ready for it.
Okay. And to the students who still have doubts or want to have more information on CLAT and AILET, I'm sharing few more links in the chat box, and even I'm sharing a link to a place where you can ask your questions even after the webinar if you have any, so that I can ask Keshav later on and I'll be posting answers there as well. So I have shared all the links. Okay, coming back to you, Keshav. Next up, we have a question related to the speed and accuracy. So how, as a student, we can work on it so that we can attempt.
So example, very simple. I just keep giving it to my students as well. कि whatever you start doing at first instance, it's slightly difficult to do. आपने बचपन में कोई भी skill सीखी होगी, it could be swimming, could be playing a musical instrument, could be playing cricket. It was difficult in the first instance, but you got used to it because you started doing it every day. So it's all about that speed. तेज पढ़ना is something that we may not have kind of learned in school because school में पढ़ना सीखा था, तेज पढ़ना नहीं सीखा था. So अभी वो उसके लिए newspaper पढ़ सकते हो with a stopwatch. So you have for every article that you read, have a stopwatch in place. शुरू में it makes you a little anxious कि घड़ी चल रही है तो concentration थोड़ा बार-बार stopwatch पर जाता है. But that sense of urgency is very important when you're writing an exam like CLAT, which is too time specific. अगर इसमें ज्यादा टाइम दिया होता 120 की जगह 150 मिनट्स दिए होते, lot of students would be able to do well. But क्योंकि इसमें time management is also a very important skill. So yeah, that is something you can start timing yourself for everything that you read and reduce the time by, you could say, थोड़ा थोड़ा करके धीरे-धीरे उसको नीचे लाना पड़ेगा.
Keshav, the next question, I hope even you can see. Jagriti has this question. How many hours should we study in a day if someone is a person who is a dropout?
See, it's not about the number of hours, to be honest. I've seen people clearing it in 5 hours. I've seen people not clearing it in 12 hours. It's all about how much effort you are able to give in the time that you read. मतलब there is a possibility कि मैं 2 घंटे पढ़ रहा हूँ, but मेरे हाथ में मेरा मोबाइल फोन है और मैं नहीं पढ़ रहा हूँ, है ना? So, or there are students who when they sit to study, they study it quite properly. So, अगर आप CLAT की preparation है, AILET 23 की preparation कर रहे हो, that is going to be your only priority. मतलब आप खा रहे हो, सो रहे हो, इसके अलावा आप पढ़ रहे हो. Because वही एक important चीज है इस point पर जो अगले 2-2.5 महीने में एग्जाम है. So don't count the number of hours when you wake up in the morning. Set a target as to what do you have to do in the entire day. जैसे आज मुझे particular topics के इतने passages solve करने हैं, आज मुझे ये वाली classes देखनी है. ये क्विजेस सॉल्व करने हैं, सर्टेन थिंग्स दैट यू डू. अगर वो आपने सब कुछ टिक कर दिया है, इफ यू हैव अ चेक बॉक्स काइंड ऑफ अ लिस्ट एंड यू कीप टिकिंग दैट चेक बॉक्स, अगर कुछ चेक करते रहोगे बार बार एंड यू फील कि हाँ आज का आई हैव डन, एंड एवरी डे अगर आप ये कर सकते हो, so that's a win. It keeps your morale high. You're quite confident in yourself. Hours doesn't matter. And ideally speaking, do not waste a lot of time on social media because it is very, I would say, enticing. And I also waste a lot of time. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people kind of waste a lot of time on social media. So I think we can stop doing that.
Okay, Keshav, you talked about social media, and I have a follow-up question on that. So, which mode should we prefer while preparing for this 3-year law entrance?
Mode as in which in what
Mode
sense?
as in online coaching, offline, YouTube.
I think offline तो बहुत ही कम students के पास available है. Offline is only available in major cities in India, particularly Delhi and cities like these. So when you do not have access to offline, you can go for online. But again, online jana is not an issue. Online jaakar, there are so many distractions. If I am say watching a class on my mobile phone and I get a notification from Instagram, I'll quickly open that notification. But class chali jayegi. Then Instagram will guide me to a reel maybe, and then I'll start watching reel where somebody would message me. I'll start kind of sending those reels to different people. So that kind of wastes a lot of time without even realizing that I'm wasting a lot of time. So अगर आप ऑनलाइन क्लासेस देख रहे हो एंड इफ यू हैव अ लैपटॉप इन योर हैंड, आई वुड डेफिनेटली सजेस्ट कि वो क्लासेस लैपटॉप पर ही देखी जाए, बिकॉज फोन में बहुत सारी चीजें होती है, बहुत सारी एप्लीकेशंस होती है which keep like notifying us about a lot of things, and that kind of wastes a lot of time. So I would not suggest that.
Keshav, next up we have a question from Amrita, and she's asking career-oriented courses for law students.
Career oriented courses अभी इतनी जरूरत नहीं है, but what you can do is, since I'm assuming you are in law school, so whenever you're given a project or an assignment, what generally student tendency is that we tend to ask a senior for it. कि आपने last year बनाया था, आप दे दो, मैं भी वही दे दूंगा या दे दूंगी. That is how it works. But you can start creating or making your own original assignments. What that will help you is, एक तो आपको एक understanding बहुत अच्छी होगी उस particular topic की. Those assignments or project can later be published somewhere. So generally, law students के लिए कहा जाता है that their law school life is quite hectic. So you do not get a lot of time other than that to write papers or write articles. But when you're given projects on a particular topic, or you choose a particular topic for a project, give it good time, give it good, you could say, I would say preparation or research, draft it properly, and after you're getting it checked from your teacher or any other person, you can start sending it to different publications or journals for publications. So that should help.
Keshav, you yourself is an NLU alumni. So how did you used to study that you be concentrated for more time?
During CLAT or after CLAT?
Before CLAT.
Before CLAT, I think, again, the only thing that I realized that I started a little late actually. My preparation started a little late, and I thought that if I have to clear this exam within this time frame, there are certain things that I have to understand. मेरे को मतलब घंटे गिनना बंद करना पड़ेगा ना, कि मतलब मैं अगर 2 घंटे आज पढ़ लिया, मैं 4 घंटे पढ़ लिया. That is something I have to stop doing. So maybe the only way that I did was I did something consistently. Like there was not a single day where I did not study for the exam or did not prepare. But there may be certain days where you feel really exhausted. तो ऐसा नहीं खुद के लिए बहुत difficult कर देना है चीजों को. I used to do everything. Like I used to play at times. I used to do a lot of things which I like to do. But consistency is the key. If you know what you have to do, एक तो बहुत important चीज होती है that you know कि आपको पता होना चाहिए कि आपको क्या नहीं आता है. That awareness is very important. Sometimes we know कि हमें particular चीजें नहीं आती है, but we're not able to accept it. हम उसको accept नहीं करते कि नहीं धीरे धीरे कर लेंगे. So please accept your mistakes. You don't have to tell it to anybody. You just accept it and start working on them. So don't ignore anything and be a little consistent with the preparation. आज ऐसा लगता है कि for example किसी mentor के किसी की बात सुन के थोड़ा सा encouragement मिल रही है कि हाँ अब से पढ़ेंगे. That encouragement should stay for the tenure of the exam. At least look as to what is lying after it. No, जैसे अगर मान लो कोई भी एग्जाम में क्लैट दिया था, तो क्लैट देने के टाइम मुझे पता था कि अगर मेरा क्लियर होगा तो देयर इज अ वेरी ब्राइट फ्यूचर लाइंग अहेड ऑफ मी. सो आई वाज वेरी श्योर कि कुछ अच्छा हो जाएगा आगे जाके. So yeah, that was something that was always the back of my mind.
Okay, so Keshav, I can see a few more questions. So let's take Kritika's question, okay. Kritika is saying that she's from LSR and being a journalism student, if I'm appearing for CLAT, will my UG field be an added advantage?
I don't think so. I would not suggest to like if she has already done her graduation, I would suggest her to go for 3 year DU LLB वाले exams या फिर NL SAT जो भी नया exam शुरू हुआ है NLS Bangalore का for 3 year. Because अगर आपने already graduation कर लिया, there is no point wasting those 3 years doing that 5 year degree again. And since you've done journalism, you are probably interested in maybe investigative journalism or जिसमें भी आप interested हो. Degree in law or basically an understanding in law helps you immensely because when we look at news channels also generally, a layman's perspective of a news channel and a lawyer's perspective of a news channel is extremely different. Okay, we look at the legal aspects of it, do not look at the factual aspect of it. आजकल इंडिया में बहुत बोलते हैं कि न्यूज चैनल से एक ही चीज दिखाते हैं and all of that. So when you, as a lawyer, if you're looking at it, you are able to distinguish as to why are they doing this, what difficult or different are they doing with respect to it. So yeah, journalism with law is a very good degree, but if you've done your graduation, I would not suggest setting for CLAT and do it for 5 years. Make it a 3 year process. Make it easier for you.
Okay. Next up, I'm just going to ask you a kind of FAQ. So you can just briefly reply to all the question, Keshav, because we are very less in time. When should we start our law education after UG or PG?
After UG, in fact, before UG, I would suggest. Law education तो after 12th standard ही start हो जाता है आजकल. मतलब the CLAT exam और AILET exam is for UG right after 12 students. I would suggest कि आप 5 year कर सकते हो, but if you've not done that, 3 year is also fine, but 5 year is generally preferred these days.
Okay, next up we have, what are the different career paths after NLU?
So something that's really known in the legal community is that there is a lot of nepotism. अगर आपको, for example, if my father is a lawyer, I will definitely become a good lawyer because I have that inheritance. मेरे को practice मिल जाएगी उनकी. Whereas first generation lawyer find it a little difficult. NLUs have kind of bridged that gap in the sense that there are a lot of opportunities in corporate law. Corporate law, if you go to a corporate law firm, you do not have to be a generational lawyer. First generation lawyer doesn't matter. I started my career as a corporate lawyer. I am a first generation lawyer. I have nobody in my family who's a lawyer. And as a corporate lawyer, there was nothing that you could say kind of remained an obstacle as a first generation lawyer. Everybody around me was a first generation lawyer. So that is an added advantage that these particular NLUs particularly provide.
And next up, should we go for higher studies abroad after UG in NLU?
Yes. Higher studies in India is not too much preferred, to be very honest here. LLMs अगर आपको करने हैं तो from good universities, a lot of people get scholarships as well. Because if you do not get scholarship, it gets a little expensive. But अगर आपको scholarship मिल जाती है, then they're really highly regarded. In India and elsewhere also, you have a better understanding of how laws work in different countries also. So yeah, LLM is preferred from foreign universities generally.
Okay. I can see one more question, and it's like, what type of news we should not consider for CLAT and AILET? Yeah.
News that is on the business wala page is not important. Like, in fact, I've started sending people the Hindu ke headlines that they can read on a daily basis, so they can follow maybe my Telegram channel and they can start using that. वहाँ पर उनको मिल जाएगा. Every single day it's available for free, so they can just look at the headlines कि उनको कौन सी news properly आज पढ़नी है. So that should help. Quickly,
let's take few more questions. And the next question is like, what internships you do after 5 years at law college?
After 5 years, you don't do internships. You do internships during those 5 years. After 5 years, you're expected to get a job and start working as a lawyer. So in every law school, considering it's a 5 year law school, after every 4.5 months, आपको 1.5 से 2 महीने का break मिलता है. And that break is for doing internships. So you will start with an NGO, you start with a litigation lawyer, then you apply to big firms also. If you get accepted, you go to those big firms also. So that is the trajectory generally. And then you kind of realize there are a lot of students who do not want to go into a corporate law firm because they do not like the work there. उनको genuinely court में जाकर practice करनी है. That is law for them. So corporate lawyers generally do not go to courts. I worked as a corporate lawyer for 6 months. I never visited a court. So that is how it works. If you want to do a desk work, sitting in a corporate law office, earning good salary, that's a different aspect of it. There's a lot of work again. But litigation has a thrill of its own. So लोगों को वो पसंद आता है कई बार. And if you grow into litigation, if you do well in litigation, then sky is the limit. So it depends on what you want to do ultimately. So you do those kinds of internships. I would suggest to do every kind of internship and kind of figure out as to what is your calling. आपको क्या ज़्यादा अच्छा लग रहा है?
Keshav, we are just taking last question for this session and then we are winding up. The question is, what is the main difference between BA LLB and BBA LLB? Which course has the most scope?
So BA and BA और BBA में difference ये है कि BBA में they will teach you certain commerce related topics, whereas in BA they will relate to humanity related topics जैसे history, philosophy, psychology, not generally sociology वगैरह होता है. And for BBA में you have marketing and all. To be very honest, 5 years in law school मेरे को पहले लगता था कि BA शायद ज़्यादा important होता होगा because सब लोग BA LLB होते हैं traditionally, है ना? And BBA may not be important, your stream doesn't matter. So अगर आपने BA किया या BBA किया, doesn't matter, it matters कि आपने LLB में कैसा किया, आपने law में कैसा किया. So ideally in whichever college you are going, ask your seniors कि कौन से subject, कौन सी stream में marks ज़्यादा मिलते हैं, because that is only for marks. A recruiter will never see कि आपने BA LLB किया था या BBA LLB किया था, they will only see कि आपके number कितना आया था exam में. तो चाहे वो BA में आया या BBA में, doesn't matter.
Okay, so it's time to wrap up our session for today. So let me tell you what we understood today. We understood the differences in the exam pattern, syllabus, and Keshav also talked about the marking scheme, section-wise preparation, question attempting strategy. He also talked about book resources, mocks, and PYQs. He also gave us information related to the time management, speed, and accuracy. Thank you so much, Keshav, for guiding us and clearing all our doubts.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
And thank you to all of you for being the part of this session. And thanks for sending such relevant questions for this session. And I hope you will be benefited from this session. And all the very best for both the examination. With this, I am Shilpa signing off. Till then, take care and keep checking our portal for the upcoming webinars. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.